If you look at the causes of on-farm losses, I would say that first thing is inadequate harvesting time. That is, the farmers are often forced to harvest prematurely to meet an urgent need of food or cash.
Wishing a very warm day to you all. And we are back with the third and the final episode of Save the Feed podcast series, Hands for Hunger in Focus, brought to you by Food for All Kadamandiya Food Bank. And first, let me give a shout out to our main sponsor, Impulse, for helping us conduct this series. Impulse is one of the leading brands, not only in photography, but in variety of media fields in Sri Lanka. And if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, I strongly recommend you to listen in. I'm Vandana and I'll be your host for the session. We have got a power-packed episode for you today with another expert, and we are going to talk about many pressing things and solutions for the food wastage crisis in Sri Lanka. So stick around till the very end. So now it's time to welcome our guest, Mr. Mohammed Aheeyar, who's an experienced researcher in designing and executing multidisciplinary research in the agrarian and water sectors. He is also an advocate for integrating sustainable development goals. Thank you very much for joining us, and we warmly welcome you to this session. And how are you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me for this important topic, and it's a timely topic. I think you all are doing a great work, I think, currently as a charity organization is highly valued. Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be part of this program.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. So, we have got many people who might be listening from you for the first time. So, we would love to hear a word about your journey. Could you please tell us what's your favorite part of being a researcher?
It's my career, I think, from the beginning, last 25 years, I am working as a researcher, or research is my, lifetime career. I started my journey from University of Peradeniya, and then after passed out, I joined those days Agrarian Research and Training Institute. Now it is Agrarian Research and Training Institute. And I worked there about 22 years as a researcher and the head of research division. And after that, I joined International Water Management Institute, IWMI, headquarters based in Colombo in 2014. So I am currently working with IWMI as a researcher. And I had the experience of doing research on food waste prevention and reduction with the financial support of FAO and the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing. We did a number of pieces of research work in this topic during last 2 years with this FAO project. And as a final outcome, we prepared the food waste reduction roadmap that would be launched on 17th of this month. I can invite some of you for this program. It's a virtual program. So Ministry of Environment is the host organization of this food waste agenda, and they will launch this on 17th, 2 o'clock. So some of you also can join in this program, I hope so.
That was very interesting to hear, and thank you for inviting us to the program. If you don't mind, let me ask you, sir, what do you think about the Food for All Kadamandiya Food Bank and food banking concept, especially as an expert who spent many years in the field?
Yeah, actually, it is a good concept. I think many countries have this kind of food bank. I think in our roadmap also we have proposed this idea to take it up by the government with the support and the public-private partnership and establish some pilot food banks in key areas. Like you, there are number of charity organizations currently in the country, mainly involved in the distribution of edible food, safe edible food to the needy people, like Robin Hood Army and the many other organizations. So it's a great idea. I think it's a good initiative. It helps to feed the people, and also it will contribute to the goals of reducing environmental externalities and the sustainable use of resources. So I congratulate you to having this idea, and I hope you will continue this work.
Thank you for your kind words, sir. So let's quickly dive into the subject, shall we? So, can you please comment on the stages at which food wastage occur?
Let me begin the discussion with a couple of definitions. If we consider the entire food value chain, we could categorize two types of food damages. First one is food loss, and the other one is food waste. Food loss is occurring in the upper end of the food supply chain. I think you know the food supply chain. That is from the harvest or slaughterhouse. That excludes the retail level. So primarily, food loss caused by the decision taken by the or action taken by the suppliers. On the other hand, food waste occurs at the retail and consumption level. So it is the result of purchasing decision by the consumers or decision by the retailers and the food service providers that is largely related to the behavior of the consumers. So if you ask the stages of the food loss and waste, first one is the pre-harvest stage, where we could see sometimes food is left in the field due to quality standard or sharp price drop or in many other reasons. Secondly, harvest and post-harvest operation, where losses occurs due to machinery and labor damages, and also due to poor harvest scheduling that lead into the food losses. Thirdly, post-harvest handling and storage. In this stage, lack of proper storage and the consequent transport, and also poor management of temperature, humidity, etc. And the storage time period, poor handling, all these causes food losses in this post-harvest handling stage. Fourth stage is, I could say, processing and packaging stage, where we need adequate capacity to handle seasonal gluts. I think we have experience of gluts like tomato gluts, lemon, lime gluts, etc. So this causes huge losses. And also there will be damages caused by packing, excessive trimming of the products to attain certain standard or aesthetic attraction of the foods. Then the stage is distribution, where wholesale and retail players come to effect. The major issues are demand fluctuation for perishable, like fruits and vegetables, inappropriate display at the retail level, removal of ugly shaped products, or we would say optically deformed products, and the excessive trimming, as I mentioned earlier, and overstocking. All these cause the food losses or food waste. And finally, at household level, where many reasons causes food waste, that is oversized portion, poor storage at household level, confusion on expiry dates, and the poor menu planning. We can talk about this food waste at the later part of this discussion.
So you mentioned in the beginning that food losses occur mainly due to the actions of the suppliers. So, as an agricultural nation, what measures do you think farmers can take to minimize food losses at production level?
Yeah, if you look at the causes of on-farm losses, I would say that first thing is inadequate harvesting time. That is, I mean, the farmers are often forced to harvest prematurely to meet an urgent need of food or cash, or due to insecurity and fear of theft in their fields, or they might delay the harvest expecting a higher price that will cause to over mature of products that will leading to the lower quality and the rejection in the market. Second cause is climatic condition, where unexpected harsh climatic condition like heavy rainfall or heavy temperature and the also lack of rain. These all causes significant pre-harvest and post-harvest losses, which are beyond the farmer's control. And the other cause is pest and diseases infestation in the latter part of the product. It's another important cause of losses that will cause qualitative loss and quantitative loss. And the practices applied at the harvesting and handling stage by the farmers. Here, the food losses occur due to the lack of or inadequate machinery, lack of skilled labor to do harvest, or sufficient or excessive drying of crops by the farmers. I think we all know that there should be some accepted moisture content or expected level of maturity. So the harvesting stage is very important by the farmers. Sometimes the damage goes to grains during the threshing and shelling. So where machineries and how they are doing the threshing and shelling also causing the damages, and that will ultimately leading to the food loss. And the next item is the challenges in marketing of this produce. For instance, farmers may prefer not to market or even harvest their crop. For instance, the cost of reaching the markets due to poor transport is too high. Related to the market price, farmers may not harvest it because it is not profitable for them. That ultimately causing damage. I think we have come across these kind of things, especially in the COVID situation, farmers were unable to do their marketing. So huge loss of perishables we have seen in the recent past due to this marketing of these producers. And the other reason, finally, I would say lack of storage facilities. It is also significant determinant of losses, food losses. Significant losses are caused by inadequate storage condition as well as decision made at the early stage of the supply chain that is leading to the products to short shelf life. Adequate cold storage, I would say cold chain throughout the food supply chain in particular, that is crucial to prevent the quantitative and qualitative food losses. During transportation also, the good physical infrastructure and efficient logistics are important to prevent the food losses. So there's some aspects are beyond the farmer's control, but a lot of things farmers and the other actors in the supply chain can do the management of these food losses causing factors.
It was very informative answer. Thank you, sir. So we talked about production level food losses, but when dealing with inside and off-site processing scenarios, what kind of measures do you think we can take to minimize food wastage?
So in case of processing, it can play a big role in preserving the foods. but losses can be caused by inadequate facilities as well as the technical malfunction or human errors. The loss of food during the processing is usually the result of human error or poor management or technical malfunction that lead to the meet the quality standard required, and that will be finally rejection on the final product. Lack of processing capacity to handle the seasonal gluts in developing countries, as I mentioned, is one of the big challenge. Many tropical crops are preserved by drying and processing into shelf-stable products. Another factor that contributes to the food waste at retail level, especially at supermarkets and high-class hotels, is the tendency of to get homogeneous, or I would say perfect ingredients or products in terms of color, shape, size, etc. Food that are failed to meet these high standards are discarded. So processing of these less perfect products into ready-made foods may be a way of using discarded fresh foods. Otherwise, these foods spoil easily and are often discarded or sold at the lower prices. Another aspect here we can consider is innovative food processing solutions that will help to make use of fruits and vegetables that would otherwise not to be used. For example, converting ugly foods or leftover produce into healthy and flavorful juices. So currently many supermarkets are doing these kind of things. And other thing is manufacturing line optimization is another method where optimization of equipment and operating conditions and solving production line issues and repurposing discarded food for sale or donations are approaches that contribute food waste reduction. So the Kadamandiya food bank come to here, the donations, so that will help to reduce the food waste here. Other than processing, there are some additional opportunities exist to reduce food waste. These include packaging improvements, shelf life extension, cold chain management, and more. And the food safety and reducing food loss actually go in hand in hand. Therefore, improved food safety culture is vital to reduce the food waste. Packaging preserves the quality and extends the shelf life of produce, that reducing the food waste and waste.
With that out of the way, let's switch gears to the customer side. So, what can we do to minimize post-harvest wastage, especially in retail and consumption levels?
So this is food waste occurring at the back end of the supply chain. Food waste occurring at this level can be classified into 5 distinct types according to its origin. Firstly, storage losses, where food is thrown away from the storage. Second one is preparation loss, that is, food is discarded during the food preparation or cooking process. Third one is kitchen leftovers that could occur due to surplus production and excess cooking due to many reasons or failure to cook right quantities. Fourth one, this is applicable to food services where buffet table leftovers or losses occurring during the food serving. Then finally, the customer end, plate leftovers. This is food residues left at the consumer's plate. So food waste often results from complex and contradictory demands of everyday life, including time constraints. Indeed, where time is scarce, consumers buy less often and greater quantities, resulting in higher level of waste. Consumer waste is often a result of poor purchase planning and excess and impulse buying, and confusion over labels like best before and used by or expiry date, and poor in-home storing or stock management, and at the household level preparing too much of food, and lack of knowledge on how to use leftovers in other recipes instead of discarding them and poor home storing. In countries like Sri Lanka, fruits and vegetables and highly perishable foods such as animal or bakery products and cooked foods generally suffer high level of waste at the retail stage than the staple food like rice or other cereals. The causes of food waste at the retail levels are linked to limited shelf life, the need for products to meet aesthetic standard in terms of color, shape, and size, and variability in demand. Portion and package size are important determinants of food waste. Consumer may be forced to buy more than they need because only large packages are available. Sometimes consumer forced to buy whole fish, though he is needed some pieces of fish. And the promotions or bulk discounts, for example, buy one and get one free or economic packages, may entice consumers to buy on impulse, which also encourage the wastages. Placed waste in hotels and restaurants is difficult to control unless consumers change behavior and mindset, though this is manageable for um, staff dining with some intervention. For instance, plate waste are measured to discourage food waste. Waste bins are kept on the scale when somebody is throwing food, so he or she can see how much they waste. However, shifting mindset of customers or guests is a great challenge. Quality and taste of the food play a big role in food waste generation. If the food is tasty, people seldom throw away anything. Social practices related to food consumption also has a role in countries like us, where various religious, social, ethnic groups with different cultures and traditional practices that might cause huge amount of food waste. In a nutshell, I would say the reason behind the food waste in general are lack of awareness and knowledge, consumer attitudes, preferences, standard portion size, cooking skill, unsuitable menu planning, improper storage, socio-economic and lifestyle factors, labeling, improper packaging, poor handling, poor stock management, logistics, product quality requirement, and technical functions.
I like where we are headed with this conversation. I've always been curious about this subject. So, sir, in your perception, how do you think we can improve waste management?
Yeah, that is very important part because food waste account for the largest share of the total solid waste generated in this country. It is more than 50% of the total waste, and it could range from 50 to 75% even, depending on the context and location. Therefore, prevention and reduction of food waste can reduce the half of the waste management problem. And prevention or reduction of food waste is often preferred over recycling or recovery. While all these efforts to reduce food waste, if there are food waste generated, what are the best options to manage them sustainably is the question. The basic idea here is to reduce organic waste going to the landfills. What can we do? Firstly, we can redistribute good quality hygienic food for human consumption, or food and nutrient recovery for animal feed. Then waste segregation, composting, energy generation, etc. Composting food waste at the household and food services level would, of course, raise the consumer's awareness of the quantities of wasted. It will give the visualization of the food waste that they are generating. Urban and peri-urban gardening may reduce the amount of food that is going to landfills. Consumers and all food-related enterprises should be informed and trained on food waste segregation. We could increase the adoption of segregation, separate collection, and conversion of food waste into animal feeds without competing with the safe and nutritious food recovery and redistribution for direct human consumption. But measures should be taken to ensure the safety of the feed that would be considered by the government to issue necessary guidelines. If we collect good quality hygienic and safe food for household or food services or events, we could distribute the food to the needy people for consumption without any issues.
Very well. So we have got listeners from many backgrounds. Since we are talking about many technical things here, can you please elaborate how we can implement concepts like cleaner production or reduction of food miles along with food wastage minimization? What would you say to our listeners?
Yeah, we have in Sri Lanka, we have cleaner production policies for agriculture and fisheries sector. And also we have sustainable consumption and production policy that is already in place. These cleaner principles aim to promote responsible production and management practices throughout the value chain and adapting sustainable use of resources and minimizing post-harvest losses, ensuring safety, hygiene, and quality standards, and sustainable management of waste. These principles, of course, help to produce good quality products, and that would consequently reduce the food losses and waste. Food miles is a term which refers to the distance of food that is transported from the time of its production until it reaches to the consumer. Food miles are one factor used when assessing the environmental impact of food. Transportation introduces a time gap between various stages of the food supply chain from production to consumption. This time gap increases the risk that food products, particularly perishable ones, may be damaged or lost. Example, due to excessive heat or cold damage. Contamination. So if your ingredient have to come a long way, they may have to have a heavy carbon footprint. So therefore, the direct purchasing from the farmers, home gardening, etc., that would reduce the food miles and finally reduce the food losses and waste.
So we talked about many compelling things today, but we are curious to know, is it possible to completely stop food wastage?
In theory, actors in the food supply chain generally make rational decisions that allow them to maximize the profit in the case of producers or well-being in the case of consumers. This formula would decide the acceptable level of food loss and waste. In this view, a certain level of food loss or waste is unavoidable. For example, say if there is a latest technology or machineries to reduce the certain level of food waste, the investor look at the return to investment. What is the marginal benefit he would get from the investment? Similarly, the customer side, frequency of shopping by household customer, and his opportunity cost of time, would decide how many time he is going to shop. Though infrequent shopping may cause food losses and waste. So this makes economic sense of food operators or consumers to tolerate some level of food loss and waste. Similarly, promotional price offers by supermarket and retailers. They are losing some money by this promotion. So how much discount would be given is depend on the return they are going to get from the food waste. So these level can be considered as optimal from the perspective of producers who maximize their profit or consumers who maximize their well-being. So to reduce the food losses and waste, we should have a roadmap, an action plan, and set targets with a time frame and monitoring mechanism that would drive toward the reduction targets.
Indeed, sir. So we have had a wonderful discussion today. Finally, let me ask you, as a veteran in the field, what fresh methods do you encourage us to use as Sri Lankans to mitigate the food wastage crisis?
Firstly, I would say food waste is in our culture is not considered as an unethical, unfortunately, or crime. It is not part of our value system, even. Food waste, by and large, caused by the attitudes of people. People are cooking a lot more than they are consuming with the prevailing cultural norms. The traditional context and generosity of Sri Lankans in treating the visitors is also leading to food waste. So, to correct this issue, we need to go for a massive campaign to drive behavioral change. Ad hoc awareness currently being conducted here are not sufficient. So, action towards behavioral change are much needed to address the food waste issues. Awareness program should be focused on different groups, starting from kindergarten, school children with necessary curriculum changes, youth, food services, hospitals, canteens, retail markets, etc. Unfortunately, food waste reduction is not in the agenda of most stakeholders. They have not visualized the issue, understanding the magnitude of the problem. Food waste quantification at food supply chain level is an effective tool to promote the prevention and reduction strategies. Food waste quantification initiatives have multifaceted effect of the people, value, behavior that can provide participant an understanding of the scale of the problem and causes while generating motivation to invest in logistical improvement that would encourage the prevention. And other thing is, most of the agriculture products are seasonal. So appropriate technology should be introduced to keep the harvest for a long period. Example, making value-added products. Investment to increase storage and cold storage facilities in the agriculture value chain is essential. Then I would say that the taste of the food has a role in food waste generation. Developing the cooking skills for the staff working in the food services and household would contribute to the food waste reduction. The knowledge and skills on traditional food preparations and preservation should be transferred into the new generations. Example, reuse of leftover foods for delicious dishes. And then I would say to establish resource centers like food banks with public-private partnership in key locations. Maybe at the initial stage, this could be some pilots. Finally, the use of digital innovation, for example, development of mobile app that would provide common platform for the stakeholders to engage in food redistribution. The app would provide hands-on information on registered potential beneficiaries and the availability of food. So the centralized database should be accessible to anyone to donate or receive excess food. Thank you.
So that's a pretty great way to conclude this conversation today. What you emphasized was that actions towards behavioral change are must if we want to mitigate this food wastage crisis in Sri Lanka. And spreading awareness should be more focused on every level of the community. And we, as Us Against Hunger volunteers of Food for All Kadamandiya Food Bank, also think the same. And that is why we are trying our best to enlighten people through different awareness programs. As you mentioned, novel methods such as food banks and digital apps, which are accessible for anyone to donate or receive surplus food, are essential. Food for All Kadamandiya Food Bank is the first ever food bank in Sri Lanka, and they also have created an app which serves the purpose you mentioned. So personally, I also feel honored to be a part of this as a volunteer. So we have come to the end of this discussion. Our guest today was Mr. Mohammed Aheeyar, who's an experienced researcher in designing and executing multidisciplinary research in the agrarian and water sectors. Thank you very much, Mr. Aheeyar, for joining us today and for sharing your valuable time and insight with us. And we wish you all the very best on your future endeavors. And we hope to meet you again in another chapter of our journey. And we thank all our listeners for joining me today. I hope you all learned a lot, and make sure to check out other important projects done by Food for All Kadamandiya Food Bank. And always stay tuned.